Welcome to the Waiver Wire show for the 14th time as we go into, well, we might not have done it week one. Kevin, I think we started week 3, week 4, something like that.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly when it started, but honestly, we've been a train and we've been a locomotive that's just going straight to the playoffs, baby.
We're here every single week for you, and we're going to keep doing it through your fantasy playoffs. Brian McFadden, co-founder of Legit Football, joined by Kevin Phillip Fox, the Buffalo Trill. We're going to do what we do every week. We're going to go through my top 10 waiver wire list. Kevin is going to have his own list. Inevitably, we will differ quite a bit. We've been doing that. I feel like early in the season, we were pretty aligned. Lately, we've been way off.
Yeah, I like it though, because it's definitely giving the listeners more names to be considering, more names to chew on.
Additional content, additional analysis. That's what we're here for. Well, we don't need to beat around the bush anymore. For anybody who's in the chat, if you have waiver wire specific questions, feel free to put them in there. We'll put a little time at the end to answer them. Otherwise, if you have any other fantasy questions, Kevin, what do they do?
Thursday, 4 o'clock Pacific time, fantasy Q&A show. Myself, Brian McFadden, Pro Football Demon. It's off the chain, Brian. Off the chain.
Fantasy Q&A show every Thursday, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, an hour-ish leading right up into what's sure to be a stunning Thursday night football game, Bailey Zappi versus Mitch Trubisky.
I'm literally going to bet every under I can find. And I will say, Brian, you and I on this show, it's like we're punching our time cards. We got our suits, we got our ties, we got our suitcases. Thursday Q&A show, unbuttoned, unfiltered. We let it all hang out on that show. So definitely come through if you're looking for a really fun environment.
Guaranteed to be more entertaining than the game that follows it. All right.
99% likelihood.
Let's go ahead and get into our top 10 list. This week, I did test my big reveal. So unless I do something wrong, it should actually show the list this week. All right. So waiver wire top 10 for week 14. Booyah.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
All right. So got it to work. So let's just kick it right off, right at the top. I don't know if you agree with this, but anytime I can get a bona fide RB1, I don't care how old he is. I'm going to go number one on the waiver wire, especially so close to the fantasy playoffs. I've got Ezekiel Elliott. Straightforward here, Kev, from Andre Stevenson, out for at least a few weeks. In his absence, Zeke got 21 touches, enough for 13 PPR fantasy points. Look, he's no Christian McCaffrey, but he finished as an RB2 at this point in the season. Playoffs coming up, especially if you're fighting for a wild card spot. I think Ezekiel Elliott has to be number one on your waiver wire.
It's really a no-brainer. Spears was in heavy consideration until the Henry news came out that he might be trending more.
He's on my list. He got back on, but he's a lot lower than he would have been.
I've been saying all year this was the Tyjae Spears show. I kind of thought that I was going to get to make that joke when he was my number one. But yeah, he's down my list as well a little bit. But Zeke is the consensus one. No-brainer. Don't overthink it. Don't get cute. As we've said many times, empty the fab clip. Anything you got left on Zeke.
Agreed. So he's your number one as well, correct?
Big time.
Good. We'll keep it rolling. We're already aligned. Number two, Elijah Moore. Now, he has popped up on this list a number of times, but all he did was get a quarterback by the name of Joe Flacco, who apparently decided to target him 3 more times than he's been targeted. 12 targets from Joe Flacco, which is 3 more than he's seen in any game this year. 4 receptions for 83 yards. He was getting used on the outside, not just in a gadgety perspective. I saw a stat earlier today, Kev. Joe Flacco's air yardage was the most by a Cleveland Brown quarterback in 5 years.
Oh, God, you hate to hear that.
38-year-old Joe Flacco.
Fan. Yeah, you guys got it. Browns fans and the Browns team deserve better. Honestly, it's a disgrace. The fact that they're even competitive with the dumpster fire of quarterback play that they've had for the last half decade. And that includes, unfortunately, the crumbling of Baker Mayfield. But it's also partly on them, given that they went out and gave up the bag for Deshaun. So, But I agree with you. Elijah Moore's number 5 on my list. A couple names ahead of him I like a little bit more. One of them being your number 3 pick. So I'll start throwing out some love to Noah Brown, resident Texans truther, Tank Dell, your boy. We need a moment of silence for Tank Dell.
Oh, yes. I wish we had a sound effect producer to do the bugle.
What a season. What a season and what a player. And he's going to be great for a long time. But Noah Brown, I think, is going to step into a lot of targets in his space. Obviously, fire up your Nico Collins. And I think Noah Brown is the biggest beneficiary of Tank Dell going down.
Yeah, just a quick reminder of when he was hot for those 2 weeks. 13 receptions on 14 targets, 325 yards. That's 2 games, week 9 and week 10. And as you mentioned with my boy Tank Dell on
Yeah.
injured reserve, even last week, he didn't really produce, but he was the number 2 option behind Nico Collins after Dell went out. You got Mechie and Robert Woods were both splitting carries at wide receiver 3. So it is Noah Brown locked into wide receiver 2, an offense that likes to throw the ball. They're going to be competing for a playoff spot. Yeah, I can't. That's why I have him at number 3. I think I put Moore ahead only because Moore is wide receiver 1 in Cleveland. Getting 12 game, Amari Cooper got injured again. So Flacco's going to pepper him with 12 targets.
Definitely.
Hard to say no to that kind of volume.
I like the 3-pack at the top there. It feels like there's no losses there, no busts there. They're all on my list as well. Why don't you talk a little bit about Isaiah Likely and why he's your number 4 pickup?
So I had him on the list last week. I don't remember exactly what order, but there was no need. He was on bye, so this is essentially the same as before. His one game after Andrews went on IR, he had 4 receptions on 6 targets for 40 yards. Nice, solid first game for a tight end and the tight end landscape that we have. We know that Lamar likes to get the ball to. He's not a Mark Andrews, but I think he could be a solid contributor where anybody after the first 5 or 6 tight ends is like, pick your poison, flip a coin. Why not go for a guy with Isaiah Likely? We've seen his talent in the preseason. We know what he can do.
Yeah.
And he's in an offense that likes to target the tight end position. I like all of that. That's why I put him at 4.
He's a great player. I generally tend to just veer away from tight ends a little bit on the show. I have one on my list. And believe it or not, this name is not even on your list, so this is going to be fun to uncover.
I'm surprised you don't have my number 9 on here with Mr. Houston Texans guy.
I know, and I love Brevin Jordan too. I was a big fan of his when he came out. I thought he would do more things. I'm telling you, this generation, McFadden of Madden players are going to know who everybody is years in advance because you can download draft classes. It's a game changer. But I have my number 4 pick as your number 8 pick, Roschon Johnson. Very, very excited to see what he can do in that offense. They're coming off of a bye, very similar to your Likely call, where he was a good pickup last week, but he's a better pickup this week because now you have that game. You're not missing a game there. And if you were able to play, waiver roulette with Likely and Roschon and win this week, then congrats on getting, a potential starting player this late in the season and not having to waste a week of them on your bench.
And we talked last week. They were both on our list last week that you probably could have got them cheaper last week when they were going into buy, either because people didn't want to take the risk and put a player on buy, or number 2, when they're sorting by available players, it tends to sort by projected on whatever platform you're on, which means they wouldn't even have showed up. So hopefully you guys listened to us and got a discount, or maybe even got them for free last week.
They did. They listened to us.
Yeah, of course they did.
So Jake Browning, McFadden, at your number 5. Let's talk about that.
I mean, did you watch the game?
He's sharp, man. No, he was sharp as a tack, honestly.
I don't know where this guy came from, but for those of you who didn't, 32 for 37, 5 incompletions, 354 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Oh, by the way, also added 22 yards with his legs. That one scramble, I believe it was in the 4th quarter.
Beautiful.
I was like, where did you come from, Jake
Knifing
Browning?
across the field, got Josh Allen on his ankles. It was
against a pretty solid Jaguars defense. This is not
defense.
Schlubs here. These are guys who have been able to slow down other teams. Now, could it be a one-off? Sure. But if you need a quarterback at this point in the season, we know what the weapons that this guy has to throw to. And honestly, he looked really good. He was going through progressions, leading his receivers, deep balls to Jamar. I mean,
I've liked what I've seen from him in every spot that we've seen him in. He looks pretty sharp. I get a little nervous about
QB4, by the way. Nice. I know it's 1 week. QB4 in week 13.
Yeah, I get a little worried about consistency, but there's no evidence to suggest that he won't keep putting it together. I love the
if
call.
You got it, Trevor Lawrence. If
him in my number 10, I was back and forth on making him my number 10 between. I'll just say the spoiler because he's my number 10. It's Rashid Shaheed. He's always worth throwing in as a dart throw, and especially if Jameis is the QB, Rashid Shaheed is going to get a lot of deep shots, get a lot of fun play. But I don't hate Browning on this list. He's like my honorable mention /10. They're interchangeable for me. Ty Chandler again, McFadden. We're infringing on crush territory here with you and Ty Chandler.
Who's your number 5? Did we already go through?
My number 5 is Elijah Moore. So we're good to go. Okay. We're covered up.
Well, then before we go,
pretty consensus so far. We're pretty locked in.
Before we go on, Kev, Do you ever find it hard to keep up with all the different bets you've made against your friends?
I do.
Right. Who's paid? Who hasn't paid? What were the terms, et cetera? Well, we've partnered with the cool new app called Cut. You see, we got the cool graphic for those of you
Love
watching
cut.
us on YouTube. Cut formalizes the whole process so that you don't have to check the notes on your phone or scroll endlessly through your group chat. It's essentially a better version of Venmo, but for betting with a bunch of social features that make it like a betting social network. Does that sound valuable, Kev?
Sounds unbelievable, man. Sounds like
Some of
something I
your
need in my life.
degenerate friends in LA
Oh, dude,
doing
me and
LA
all
things and
I,
not
I
paying
got
up.
a little degenerate gambling ring at my job with all my busters. So maybe I'll grab cut and put them on with it.
Well, what Cut can do is it tracks all of your bets, allows you to create your own terms, introduces you to other fans, and perhaps most importantly, ensures that you're paid when you win, Kevin. They also give you cash back on every single bet you make on their platform. Just go check them out at cut.com. That's Kutt. You see the graphic down below here on the YouTube channel, or on their Instagram at cutbet. That's Kutt. All right, now let's jump into
Love
number
it.
6. You're talking about Mr. Ty Chandler. I mean, he was another one of those guys that was on our list last week going into a bye. 44% of running back snaps in week 10 versus Atlanta. He has proven to be more explosive than Alexander Madison. The coaching staff has been saying a lot of good things about him. They basically just said, like, if he got his pass pro up, he'd be getting a ton of opportunities. So I think they're going to
Right.
want, especially with this playoff run coming up for the Vikings, they're going to want to use him a lot. I throw out week 12 because the whole offense was bad.
Yeah.
And once again, this is a guy who could be getting RB1 snaps this point in the season. I got to have him on my list still.
Yeah, you're infringing upon like I said, like a crush. Like he's on your list every week. I like him.
And I back it up. I have him in multiple dynasty leagues.
Yep,
So.
yep. And I like him. He's a great player. He's been on my list before. The steam has kind of died down a little bit. I really have liked what I've seen from Alexander Madison lately. So I kind of get a little nervous of whether or not Ty Chandler will continue to use, because I kind of thought he was just going to usurp, but it kind of feels a little bit like Madison might have another crack at being the lead dog. My number 6 pickup is shockingly not on your list. We had Christian Kirk go down, and I love what I've seen from Zay Jones. He stepped in last night. He looked pretty damn good. He's been historically consistent in this offense. If Ridley steps into the Kirk role and Zay Jones steps into the Ridley role, or even the Zay Jones role of last year, I think Zay Jones can definitely give you some productive. He probably won't have some crazy boom weeks, but I do think that he could give you some consistent value at the wide receiver position down the stretch.
I definitely don't mind. I love the talent. I have Zay Jones in one of my dynasty leagues. A little bit concerned about who's going to be throwing him the football, which is why I didn't have him on my
Might
list.
be Trevor. Might be Trevor.
If it's Trevor, absolutely he should be on your list.
That's a good point.
I find it hard to. I know that that's what's going on with the medical community saying, oh, he could come back. I find it hard to believe he's not going to miss at least one game.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it would be smart to rush him back out there.
And this is week 14. You're playing for your playoff hopes here. So going for a guy like Zay Jones, if CJ Beathard is throwing him the ball, that gives me a little bit of pause.
Right. And then your number 7 is my number 2. So Tyjae Spears is obviously, I'm infringing on crush territory with Tyjae Spears. I have all year. This is the Tyjae Spears show. Derrick Henry got a little banged up. Probably not going to miss next week's game. It'll be interesting to see. He's not in the protocol is what I'm hearing.
What Vrabel was saying was basically he's good to go now.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is.
I don't understand how that's possible.
Me neither.
I guess Derrick Henry is not human. We've suspected for many years.
Yep. It's proven. It's scientifically proven now. But why do you think Spears belongs on this list, even though he might
because
not?
Henry's not human and he's going to be the starting running back. And we've been talking about Tyjae Spears on almost every single one of these shows. And the reason he never made that leap was because, as talented as he is, he was always the number 2. Look, Henry went down. He got 20 touches, 88 yards, looked solid, but Henry didn't stay down. If Tyjae would be my number 1 ahead of Zeke, if King Henry was actually in concussion protocol. Yeah, that's really it. That's the only reason I bumped him down is because he's just going to play that role he's been playing.
Yeah.
Against they also have a very good, suddenly surging Dolphins defense in week 14. That worries me a little bit. They shut down that Commanders offense completely.
Yeah, I think that's a good call on Spears being at 7. I have a move like very high up on the list, but it's just because potential. And that's what it's been all year. And I don't know if you can really start him at this time of the year. And eventually the potential bomb does tick and explode. And if I've had guys on my bench
especially
all
right
year,
now,
Brian.
you
need
you
a
got to make it.
start.
You need to
can't throw
start.
spears in
You
them.
need points because you need to
Yeah.
get into the playoffs and what many leagues have as their last week of the regular season.
Yeah. And then my number 7, since we're at number 7 on your list, is OBJ. And OBJ is under the 50% threshold on Yahoo. I think
I
OBJ.
saw him.
Yeah,
Saw him.
I think he could be a league winner, man. He's looking incredibly sharp of late. Had an explosive blow up game 2 weeks ago against Cincinnati. Ravens had their bye this past week, and then the week prior he had an okay game, but it was a routing. If the Ravens find themselves in some competitive games coming up, OBJ will get peppered with targets, and he looks like 80% of his old self.
Zay Flowers is coming on.
Yeah, but
You got Keaton Mitchell. I don't know.
Good for OBJ. You talked about the target share for likely. I think it's also good for OBJ as well.
Okay, fair. Look, I think it's just the age and the injury.
I get it.
OBJ. I think I saw him on the threshold. He was definitely in the qualifier. I just couldn't put him on the list.
It's eye test, man. He's looking better lately. Like he looks like himself. If you've been watching
he has looked better. I don't know about himself.
He
does
cooks
look
people.
better.
He's got that. That he does the LaShawn McCoy. Like he holds the football like a loaf of bread, and he just makes people miss. Like he runs down the field in the open. He's I love watching OBJ. It reminds me of being a kid again.
All right, so we talked earlier. I got Roschon at 8, so we don't have to rehash that.
Love Roschon.
I think if anything in week 12 showed he is the RB1 in Chicago. So let's go on to number 9. The reason I have Brevin Jordan is he had, I don't have the stats in front of me. I actually forgot to put his stats up, but I think he had 4 catches and a touchdown in Dalton Schultz's place in that Texans offense. So if we're talking about Noah Brown, obviously you already have Nico Collins. If Dalton Schultz misses another game, Brevin Jordan could very likely have a tight end 1 week ahead of him. And if you need a tight end to make it into your wild card spot, a guy like Likely or a guy like Brevin Jordan, those are the 2 tight ends I have that should be available on your waiver wire.
Yeah, and pretty impressive to see him, have so many explosive plays last week at, kind of coming in and being like his first spot start. Really, might have been his first career start. I can't remember if he started before, but he looked darn good, man. And before the game, I was like, man, I might just throw an anytime touchdown bet on Brevin Jordan. He didn't end up getting in the end zone, but I do think the way Stroud's been playing, Tank Dell going out, I think Brevin Jordan has the potential to go out there and get one this week.
By the way, we do have a tight end question by none other than the Pro Football Demon.
Perfect.
Freiermuth or Likely this week? Should we make him wait until Thursday?
I think we should answer him at the end of the show. We're not far off, Demon. Stick around, hang in there. Kenny Gainwell is a name I want to just bring up. He was my number 8.
Yeah, with Swift getting hurt.
Swift banged up. Gainwell had utilization. He had work before Swift went down. So Kenny G, interesting name to bring up. Probably, I don't know. Is the word out on if Swift's playing or not? Questionable?
Questionable. I haven't seen any. We have to see a few practice reports first.
He'd be a good spot start, I think. He would be higher up on this list, I think, if we knew for sure Swift was out. So keep your eye on Kenny Gainwell. If you're one of those people like myself who likes to stack their waiver claims, maybe your last one, throw a Kenny G bid in there. The one tight end I have on my list is Tyler Higbee at number 9. And Tyler Higbee's been having some breakout games. The Rams offense is humming. I think you talked about
team right now.
Say, I know.
Rams.
I did not think that. I was very shocked to hear that. Being in LA, you got a lot of Rams fans, and they were talking to me about, you think we got a shot? And I was like, no, I don't. And now I'm wrong.
Could make in a week NFC other than the top. They could make the wild card though.
I think definitely they could. It's looking like it now. I got to eat my words. I hope Jesse from work's not listening. Sorry, bro. I besmirched his team. But yeah, I think Higbee's a good. You talked about the top 5 or 6 being really the only ones reliable. I think Higbee's as good of a dart throw as anybody.
On number 10, let's go ahead and put another quarterback on there, Josh Dobbs. Like everybody remembers the negative last game, and that negative was about as negative as it gets. He had 4 interceptions. That offense was dreadful. But let's remember that prior to that, he had 18 or more fantasy points in 4 straight weeks, Kevin, including 3 consecutive top 7 finishes. And he's got a very nice playoff schedule starting with the Raiders in week 14. So
that's nice.
I could switch Dobbs and Browning because of that reason, because of the fact that Dobbs has seen us do it multiple times, and because Dobbs has the rushing floor, and because he's got a really nice schedule coming up. It's more just I saw Browning do it most recently, and he looked so good. And the last time we saw Dobbs,
I don't blame you. Yeah, I didn't have Josh Dobbs on my list, but he's the kind of guy. Quarterback purgatory is so real in fantasy football, and if you don't have Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, end of
Brock
list
Purdy,
maybe. Oh,
Jordan
Brock
Love.
Purdy, Lamar Jackson,
Did
Jordan Love. Those 6 guys, you've been
you hear us,
feeling it this
Demon?
year.
Jordan Love
Yeah, you
must
hear
start.
that? It's true. I mean, if he was eligible for this list, he'd be on it, obviously. But no, it's Dobbs, Browning. I've had games where I've thrown out Derek Carr. It can be ugly in fantasy football, but those two, Browning and Dobbs, are pretty promising. I already talked about my 10 with Shaheed and Browning combo for the honorable mention. So that's really the waiver wire names. We do have a question to get to, Money Mac, and it's from our friend Pro Football Demon. Need help, guys. Fryermuth or likely this week, Brian?
I don't know. I was so high on Fryermuth last week, and then he just completely fell down there. That whole Steelers
Goose, or
offense,
no, not a goose, but not a good performance. A
the
dud,
whole
I'll
the
say.
whole Steelers offense looked bad. Now they've got Mitch Trubisky going up against. Say what you want about the Patriots, but their defense has been solid. They just held the Chargers to 6 points. So I got to go Isaiah Likely. If he even gets 75% of that Andrews role, that's going to look really pretty. And you can see that I
Yeah.
have him on my list here. So I got to
What I
stick with
like
that.
about Muth this week is that he's in a situation where a backup quarterback. I love targeting running backs and tight ends for backup quarterbacks. There's just some sort of a weird symbiotic chemistry between them. Also, practice squad or depth receivers are also good to throw in there. But Isaiah Likely does have the ceiling for sure. So I like the Likely pick too, but I don't hate Muth this week, for the record.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was going to be the new centerpiece of that offense.
Yeah, it looked like it, right? The week prior. So Demon's projecting Love to come back down to earth against the Giants. And he's saying Tommy DeVito outplayed Mahomes. Demon is
He's
on
just
one.
so much denial coming
He's
out of that.
on one, dude.
Let's save that for the Thursday show,
Can't wait
Demon.
for
We can
that.
talk all about that, about how Jordan Love is the quarterback of your Jets dreams. Okay,
Right?
let's go ahead and wrap up Waiver Wire Week 14. Kevin, any last second thoughts? This is the last Waiver Wire show before teams get into the playoffs.
Well, first of all, congrats if you made it. Good luck if you haven't. And what's the term? My condolences if you won't make it. So there's the big three. You got your congrats, your good lucks, and your condolences. I'll say fight tooth and nail. If there's a chance, there's a percentage chance. Brian, did you see the legit football playoff odds that I posted?
I did.
Sick, right?
I commented because I'm
FFhub.com.
pretty much guaranteed the 1 seed.
Oh,
So
Brian McFadden's the 1 seed. Guys, just so in case you didn't know, he really wanted to. He was holstering that one. But I think, Brian, I don't know if you saw, but my odds of making it are pretty high. I think I'm going to make the playoffs.
they are.
And I'm coming for you.
The fact that one of the teams that you have a bunch of 8-5 teams and you're 7-6, one of those 8-5 teams lost when they were projected to win. Now there's 2 7-6 teams. You're in a much better position than you were.
My odds are looking pretty good. So
yeah,
go fight tooth and nail. Go out there, make your waiver wire claims. Come back through the playoffs. This is so important for winning your league. Please come back.
we will do this through week 17. So we've got
Yes,
3
sir.
more shows this season of the waiver wire show. So keep coming back. Get those waiver wire claims.
So sad to hear. Don't say stuff like that.
Okay, we're gonna pretend the NFL season goes
please.
on forever for Kevin's sake. That wraps up NFL Waiver Wire Show Week 14. Good luck on your bids. Hope you make the playoffs, and we will see you next week.